Welcome to In the Loop.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the final episode of Season 1 for In the Loop. This episode is again going to be slightly different than what we typically do. This is actually going to be a compilation episode of the final bits. This is the post-show wrap-up that we typically do at the end of the live shows. This is when we would be a little bit more casual, talk a little bit more about our personal feelings about things, as opposed to the cut and dry, real stats to do with the different tools. So this is a little bit more of a typical podcast and less about educating and more about our feelings about them. And I still think it's pretty interesting, and it was a lot of fun getting to talk with my co-host. You see that we kind of bounce around from episode 1 all the way up through this most previous episode. So if you notice that the co-hosts are switching a lot, it's because we're jumping from episode to episode. If you miss an episode and you want to go back to listen to it, you can always go back. The entire season is on Spotify and you can catch it all there. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the show. Bye. So we're going to take some Q&A from the audience. This is from Elisa. This one says, do you feel primary focus should be on Instagram ads as opposed to Facebook to promote engagement rings?
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know, Cody and I might have different opinions on this, and I'll definitely let him, kind of answer as well. I personally feel like using both makes the most sense. So I typically work with clients when they're focusing on like social ads, and we'll do what's called like a dynamic product ad where we take your actual product catalog, integrate it with Facebook. And because we mentioned, Facebook and Instagram work together, you can essentially connect your Instagram account to your Facebook, and you can run retargeting ads at the product level through both platforms as well. And I found that that's actually worked quite well. It works good for, fashion jewelry, but we've actually seen some conversions from a revenue perspective, e-commerce perspective, based on those dynamic product ads. There's no distinctive data to say whether it works better on Facebook or whether it works better on Instagram. But I think retargeting through social from, again, a product level is just such a cool thing. And that if you're not utilizing that's something that I would really consider looking into. Again, I think it works for all, types of products, but we have seen some e-commerce sales from engagement rings as well.
Yeah, I always add to that. I think it's really looking at your target demo too. So we typically see for bridal and for some of our clients that they are going after a younger demographic. So they're looking for that range of 22 to 28, which we know historically they're probably more on Instagram. And if you have the right assets and they're very visually stunning, we see extremely great performance on Instagram because you're primed on that platform to look at content to consume visual media. So images and pictures, that's the same thing, obviously, but like images and video. So through that, again, target demographic, but we use both of them and see that Instagram for the younger audience is really working well. So the dynamic product ads, like Katie mentioned.
We got another one. Says this one's from Vicky. She says, I still don't understand how SEM works. Am I just learning about SEO? But what are we supposed to be doing to start SEM? Is this in Instagram or is this Facebook?
So SEM, we're using this and we're talking about Google specifically. That is branded really as Google Ads, which is a separate platform outside of how you do your website through Punchmark, whomever. So with that, you make an account through Google Ads. And that's where you're able to then decide on building campaigns. So you are deciding which keywords that you want to bid for. So if someone goes and types in pear-shaped engagement rings, you can say, I want to bid on this term, and I can create an ad to appear there at the very top. And that ad looks similar to all the organic results in that you can tell exactly what you want your headline to be. So you can have your brand name. You get 2 more options there too. So you could say, find diamond engagement rings, visit us in store, any of those. And you can then have your description there that really talks more about the lines that you carry, your brand overall. And they can really prompt anyone to come into your store. So you're able to piece together these ads, and that's through the Google ad platform to actually launch and even to run into your area. So you can set the target radius if you want it to be so far around your store. You can only show it to just men or just women in a certain age range. So you have full control over that. But yeah, that's just a Google ads encompasses that compared to we have Facebook ads, which is umbrella for all your Facebook ads and all of your Instagram ads.
Let's talk about really quickly, if you don't mind. I'm really interested in store branding. How have you guys at the Smithy Group been able to talk to people that have had their own store branding, the same store branding for all of these years? Some of these stores, they're 4th generation or 3rd generation. Man, I just wish I don't know how to tell people. It's like, that branding was great and it is great, but like, how do you start angling them into maybe updating that a little bit more? I haven't been able to figure out how to have that conversation yet.
Yeah, I think the basis of that conversation is letting people know that it's great to honor your legacy, honor your history, but really be thinking about the future and where you want to go and who you want your customers to be. And think about, like, is the way that I'm presenting myself now going to be what's really going to captivate those people? So presenting it as an opportunity for evolution, I think, rather than like a breakup with something that you've had and loved for a really long time. That's how we like to think about it. Because just like as people, we're always kind of shifting like what we like, and we're kind of continually getting like more and more true to ourselves, especially with like a multi-generational store. That kind of true north of who you are, like that's going to change as kind of the ownership passes on and kind of as that new generation takes over as well. So not being afraid to like own the new responsibility you have if you're taking over for, like a parent or someone else, or also just thinking about like, am I kind of future-proofing my brand?
What about, I think another underrated one, I wanted to get to this, but we didn't really get to it, was I love when stores have their own photography. Man, it's just like, I don't know how much a photographer costs to have them come in and do like lifestyle shots, but man, it's amazing. I wish that if I would give everybody like a tip, if you're doing like a Black Friday or like a show, or like an event, next time you guys have an event or when you're allowed to have an event, man, I would just hire a photographer and just have them go around and snap photos, like a professional photographer, snap photos. You can use those in so many different ways. It's amazing.
I think having like that arsenal of like in-store interactions, customer interactions, like showing what your in-store events are like, they really become a part of like your kind of evergreen brand and evergreen experience.
Sure.
And then one of our favorite things and something that we do at TSG is we help actually, train store team members on how to take amazing photos in store, whether it is just with a smartphone, or also our team coaches with some basic like DSLR as well, and capturing content, and not always relying on that professional photo shoot for like day to day, but feeling confident that like it might not be 100%, but they can get it like 75%.
90% of the way there.
Yeah, like that's perfect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I always see, we have a friend, they're actually just retiring, but they're up in the Adirondacks, this group called Derek Cooper Jewelers. And I always think it's like, Adirondacks, in case you didn't know, pine needles and pine cones, very popular. I would just take like a pine branch, break one off, put it down, take a whole bunch of pieces of jewelry, like one or two for like the holiday season, put it on there, or even just go out into the woods, put one or two on the branches, snap a couple photos, and you have that. There's like 10 photos for your Instagram right there, and you didn't even spend any money. Just use your phone. Do a little touch up.
We love helping clients repurpose like their weekly floral arrangements into like the perfect like an engagement ring, or even helping people kind of build out their own like little mini photo shoot kind of prop resource where they have a couple, things like marble, like $20 cutting board from Target. That can become a really beautiful backdrop when something is taken up really close, or like a slate coaster, like that can look really masculine and like rustic, but also very cool. So even kind of thinking outside the box there, like you said, like go outside or look at the coaster section. Like you never know what's going to be perfect for you.
That's a good idea about the floral arrangements. We shouldn't really even talk. We don't post, Punchmark doesn't post on our Instagram, but that's because we're B2B. So that's my out at least. But
we have an internal joke about like jewelry on food. And I think
rings on things.
I think a store should like lean into it and have it all just, we've seen some pretty weird ones.
Crazy ones. On celery and on carrots and stuff. I'm always
was it one in chili?
Yeah, someone put it in chili, and it was like a really nice diamond, and they put it in there, and I was just like, ooh.
Grab your attention, though.
I pity the person who had to steam clean that afterwards.
Yeah, right. Man, it sounds like a lot of work, but I think just like, again, this will be next week's, but just kind of knowing when to just take pictures and just kind of move fast. And who knows, maybe it really is just about being top of mind. So just posting a lot, I think it's just
Absolutely.
kind of like 90% of the game. I see we have a Q&A that came in. Do you recommend adding a watermark on images on social media? What do you guys think?
I mean, don't add it to other branded assets is my first thing. I've seen some brands do that, like take a Gabriel & Co image and then add their watermark on it. So don't do that. That's a no-no. Don't do that. So if it's your specific asset and you're adding a watermark to it, yes, you can. Like we have some of our retailers do that. Usually they have higher quality assets because those two things usually go hand in hand. Higher quality assets. This is like photography, like worthy level. We don't want anyone stealing these, so we're going to put our watermark on them. So I've seen that happen. But then I've also, seen brands that just have iPhone photos that don't necessarily need trademarked. So think of a watermark as like a trademark so that no one will take your asset and put it somewhere else on their website.
So if you had a photographer come in and like shot a model or a group of models or a bunch of jewelry on like a bunch of nice set, maybe throw it on that so that no one takes it and scoops it back up.
Typically, you'd have to talk to the photographer for that too. Make sure that it's in the contract.
Probably a good move. Yeah.
Our store logo on your photos. You just got to be really careful, especially with photographers and their rights and their contracts. So if you think that the assets you're taking are of a quality enough that you want to make sure that they're watermarked and no one else steals them, yes, I would recommend it. But if they're just some quick iPhone photos, don't worry about it as much because they're going to live in your feed. So people will know that they're your photos.
Yeah.
Watermarks are also to communicate what brand is this and create brand awareness and brand equity. So if you're doing it for that reason, that makes sense. Hopefully that answers your question.
Let's get like a little bit anecdotal about this. I'm always interested in hearing about brand campaigns, brand strategies, and things that worked. What sort of campaigns have you guys seen for maybe specifically jewelry that you think have been successful, whether it's tied to a holiday or if it's just like a clever promotion? Anything in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them have very similar kind of variables of why they're successful. And I think it boils down to, the curation of content in your own specific brand. So, I think there's lots of different campaigns that I could say did a really great job. But I think the main piece for me is that they're all specifically unique to them and it feels like their voice. I've worked with a few different clients that have done like stylized blogs and then that naturalized, into like posting on Instagram with like similar posts. But again, it's all like, it's a familiar face. Again, kind of going back to that influencer conversation and really having someone or like even a vibe that like is distinctly them, something that is unique, I think really is ultimately the most successful thing when it comes to marketing campaigns.
We have a client, Texas Gold Connection. I think it was like buy an engagement ring, win a shotgun. And they ran it every single year. So it must have been really successful. And you know what? If you're moving product, then it's working. And they were, in Texas. So definitely was on brand for them. All the branding for it was black and white with blaze orange. That's a hunting kind of thing. Really neat, I thought. Really, really clever. You were saying like, as long as it's successful, I'm like, yeah, that one is definitely successful if they keep doing it every year.
So I now understand your question better, Mike. You're asking for like crazy ragtag ideas that we've seen.
Not ragtag. I'm not hating on anybody. I'm just saying, do you remember any? You said one was with candy?
I was talking about Shinola's recent campaign they did was around candy. We were just looking at it over lunch. Our team had like a pizza party. We were looking at like campaigns that we like. That's what TSG does. Talk about campaigns that we saw. We were like, wow, that's interesting. I have a few in my head actually. Like one of our retailers did like, wrestle an alligator. Like we'll do something wild if we sell this diamond today. And he would like jump out of the helicopter, like nuts kind of stuff.
Hell yeah.
He was awesome. And then similarly, one of our retailers did like a 60 for 60 sale. This was like pre-COVID, but they would have people like line up and they'd do like 60% off the store for an hour and just have people come in and like, it was madhouse. That was
I think I heard about it. I feel like someone did like 70% off for the first 10 people in the door, then 60% off and like something like that. And I guess it's all about, I'm sure that there's like a class that's like, sales mentality or strategy or something like that, that it's like, yeah, you want to create like a buy now reasoning or something like that. But I've never really been an expert in it. That's why I talk to you guys.
Something we're seeing for Q3 with the evergreen campaigns we run at TSG. So we always, run something for bridal. We always run something for, lower priced items. We always run something for, services, whether that's like gold buying being an all-time high. Just a side note there, that's running really well for a lot of our clients. But something we're seeing for bridal is the specific language around ready to go engagement rings. So a lot of our jewelers carry, over hundreds of semi-mounts and stuff that just needs a diamond. And you can just like walk out the door with it. They'll do same day sizing and they'll just be like, time to propose, people getting married on Zoom. I love it. Our clients are like, love is in the air. Some of our clients are having like their best months ever.
Yeah, I know. Is that crazy?
True. Love isn't canceled is the
That's
tagline.
The one.
Yeah. And TSG, we're over here we're like, what's happening? But I think the hope for brick and mortar is that like people are not going to want to shop at Zales or in the mall. They're going to want to go somewhere where, they know the store is following precautions, and then it can all be super personal experience, one-on-one experience. And you can still find what you're looking for like the same price range. So bridal.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another thing, actually, you mentioned like larger box stores. I know that a lot of the clients that I've talked to recently have said that their repair business has been the most successful in the most recent, time than ever, because a lot of those larger box stores are not taking in and accepting in those types of repairs. So if that's something that you do as a store and that's a big piece of your business, I think making sure that you're highlighting that, is also another way to have some continuous, inflow of income there, because again, those larger box stores aren't really taking in those kinds of orders.
Yeah, and people are like, I have extra time. I'm going to repaint the house and go fix that thing I wanted to wear 5 months ago.
But yeah, I think that it's just really interesting because they say that every year online retailing, e-commerce has grown. I think it was every year grew 1% year over year and just adding it on. So it went from 9 to 10 to 11 every year. And then over the course of this year, it went from, I think it was like 13%. And it jumped up to 27%. Those numbers, rough estimations. But that means that it's been like 14 years of progress and movement in the e-commerce space, all in just a couple months. So that's why we've been so breathing down everybody's neck, not just because it like leads into our business, but because it's like, if you guys can't see where the ball is going right now, then you guys are going to completely miss it. So do you guys find that you are using your digital marketing tools in your personal life? Like I personally learned how to figure out which hashtags I should use. So whenever I post paintings, I use those. And I'm like, oh man, I'm the worst, but that's just how it is, I guess.
I mean, I post super vague, artsy poetry captions. I think it's super easy to get disenchanted with social media, but I think the more fun you have with it and the more strategic you get with it, the less frustrated you get.
What is that EVO? No, there's this, I don't even understand presets. Like literally someone explained it to me. Are they like photo filters that go on top of the photo, or I can't be the only one that doesn't know what this is.
Okay. So a preset is like a concoction of edits. And a preset can be created by you manually going in and toggling through Photoshop or Lightroom, whatever software you're using. It's typically attributed to the Adobe suite, which God bless them. They have a full monopoly over the software and it's great. And essentially you can change the lighting. So that would be like the white light color graph, or you can change every single treatment of color. And that's how you get that like gradation of like, oh, this is blue shadows or green highlights, or this photo feels warmer, this photo feels darker. Like how did you achieve that? And it's just changing the color balance.
Interesting.
And it's very hard to get right. Very hard to get it to look natural.
And people sell those, I think.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Either like Creative Market, I feel like is a great place to find different things like that. Even Etsy. Yeah. Etsy is a big one too, and I personally don't do it for myself, but we have a coworker, Sarah, who's one of our designers that always like makes those edits with those presets. And, it's funny because a lot of people are like, I'll see them comment on her photos. I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. And she's like, thanks, I did this in like Lightroom or, but yeah, I mean, I think they're really fun to play with. Just the pressure for my own personal accounts, I just
avoid.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Don't take work home,
Yeah. Don't take work home. For the longest time, I had a rule where I used to say like, take the photo, edit the lighting, because sometimes your camera can dim your photos just because of the nature of a camera. Edit the lighting, and then post that up. But like some people, man, they just make them so nice. I'm like, that's not even what it looked like. It didn't even look like that when you took the picture of it.
There's also like the psychology of color, right? And like what season you're in sometimes will affect how you edit your pictures. That's the stuff that really interests me. I was telling you guys last week with my art major, but that's just something that I've always been intrigued by is like, how can you communicate something different about your brand because you chose to edit everything warmly for like, you know what I'm talking about? You see this like Anthropologie on Instagram and everything has that like super light feel. And you're like, I just want to be a part of this utopia.
Yeah, it's so pretty. How do they, it has light beams coming in. But also I'm like, yeah, like that's not what it probably looks like all the time though. So like I mean, Sarah Torres just posted, she's in the chat. She just writes, my personal life has become focused on my pets. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we want to see. That's all I want to see about everybody is just post your pet pics. Just that.
Yeah. I actually had one of our coworkers' wives message me and was like, I just want to say I appreciate that on the weekends you post nothing but like pictures of your dogs and like none of yourself. She's like, I just appreciate the extra content in my life. Like, you're welcome.
Just a little dog life. I need to get a dog just so I can get the Instagram content, you know?
You can borrow mine if you want.
Big old kit. What kind of brands do you think that if you could say which brands are doing it well on Instagram that they should go take a look at? Maybe specific, if you guys know their specific handles, so they go find it. If not, no problem. What do you guys think?
Doing what well specifically?
The social game, the posting, the feed, kind of the strategy.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier Warby Parker, and I feel like it also depends on what they're looking to get out of their, social media presence, right? Are they looking to be that very tailored, very clean, very aesthetic? That's definitely a different vibe versus, like a company like Warby, which is more, I feel like, tailored to the demographic. I feel like it's really tailored to millennials, and they have a combination between like lifestyle content, sharing their actual like customers wearing, the particular product. They post different quotes, and they're actually interacting with their customers. So I feel like it feels more like a personal account versus like something that's very curated. So, I think it really just depends. But you mentioned Anthropologie too. I love everything that they do, but it's just too expensive. Like, I feel like, I'll click on it and I'm like, look at this beautiful shot of this kitchen and everything is like color coded and, there's pops of yellow everywhere. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
The macrame, like pant,
look at my
the
pots
plant
up here.
holders. Well, exactly. I mean,
proud of
but
that.
then you click on it and then the tea towel is $40 and you're like, do I really need a towel with a cute little embroidered bee on it for $40? I want
Swipe
to
up to buy.
Exactly.
Swipe up to buy.
There's a 50% sale this weekend, Katie.
Oh, is there?
Time. Yes.
Wait, before you go on to what your brand is, quick story about Anthropologie.
Tell us.
The reason why I wanted to go to school for art, like the reason why I got sold into going to school, especially for design, is I took an art trip my senior year, and we went and we toured the Anthropologie headquarters in Philadelphia. So I didn't know this, but apparently Anthropologie is the organization, but also one of their brands. They also own, I think, Free People. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Free People apparently is extremely expensive. Anyways, and I got to walk through all their stuff, and it was so cool. But I remember I saw this whole just wall of all the clothes. This girl's like, can't take a picture of any of that. And I was like, man, I wish I would have taken some of that stuff because it would have been worth $1 gajillion, I'm sure.
I'm glad you experienced it. And then we both have this art affinity. Wonderful. Okay, so my brand that I'm going to tell everybody about is Local Eclectic, mainly because if you work in the jewelry industry, you're starting to get targeted for all kinds of different jewelry brands. But they have this ad, for example, you can see it. And it's just video carousels that show you then what the products are in that video.
Nice.
And I just love everything that they do.
That's awesome.
So good.
Look, jewelry on an actual person and not on a celery stick.
And teaching people there's fun in, it's not a celery stick. But teaching people to make a collection and how to style things like that.
Yeah.
That's the most compelling type of ad for me is a video. Madewell does a really good ad. I'm over here in my saved section for ads on my iPhone. Mm-hmm.
You have a saved section for ads?
Yeah. If I get targeted by something this is awesome.
Not judging you at all, but all right.
I'm sure this video that Madewell did of a woman wearing jeans, and it was product tagged, so you could shop those jeans in the video.
I mean, that's why you need a business account so you can tag products.
Yeah, that's just genius marketing to me. So just how to share with the class.
One thing I was going to ask you guys about, It seems like, do you find that brands, when they post all the time, do you think it's like, is it too much? Is there like ever a ceiling where it's like, okay, this brand is posting like a ton, or they're too on top of me? I find it creepy when like I search around for like, desk chair, and like I'm getting hit by ads all the time. It almost makes me like kind of hate them a little bit. Do you think that's something that they should be concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to kind of like figure out what specifically are you referencing? Like, are you referencing people that are posting organically too much? Like, I feel like there's a sweet spot when it comes to like how many times to post organic, at least from my perspective. And I think, Aaron may have a different point of view on this. I feel like maximum maybe 2 times a day, I feel like is like a fair range for people. I don't know about you, but if I'm scrolling on my feed and, I follow obviously some local businesses and I see them post and post and post, and, it gets a little redundant, and I feel like it's market saturation, right? It's almost at the point where it's like, I don't want to interact with you because you're everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I think you really have to pay attention to where you are, what you're trying to accomplish, and how saturated are you trying to make your space in your market, because that is a hard thing to deal with. It's like, if I'm posting 5 times a day, well, for the 15 minutes that one user who follows me had to scroll through Instagram, all they saw was my post, and they were kind of hoping to see their friends as well. And then they become annoyed with my brand, So I also think that don't forget the power of Instagram stories. You could post once or twice a day and then do 15 stories that correspond with the story you're telling and feed. It lives, but it doesn't live all the time, and they can go to it if they want to see it. So I think that's another reason why they came up with that feature on Instagram, is so that you can tell more details about stories that you don't have to just put in all of your feed.
Right. Yeah, I like that too.
Have you guys seen any well, we work specifically in jewelry, but have you seen any jewelry stores using Reels, Reels? Is like, I was trying to think of like, what would be like a good use of Reels for a jewelry store? And it's like, maybe just like a gem light box image.
Anything TikTok would be good for.
And then throw on the song, you turn me head right? Yeah. And just like, it's an engagement ring. That would be kind of clever. Somebody that. That's great.
Yeah. It's so funny you bring that up, because we just did a staff meeting where we were going through Reels and what brands are doing it well. And Sephora France, I believe, that specific Instagram account, they've been doing really well. And one thing that they used on Reels that we thought would work well for retailers is they do this jump cut. So essentially the camera, which was recording the reel, was facing a computer screen. And on the computer screen was their product, in their case, makeup products. But in jewelry retailers, it could be a ring or what have you. And then it jump cut to a hand holding the product. So it almost felt like the product was popping out of the screen onto your hand, which is such a really cool visual, set to music. And it becomes it's like viral, like shareable, like that's really cool, especially if you go into the holidays, putting some holiday music behind that or making it like Christmassy or whatever. But jump cuts are really well. And then there was another brand, I forget the name, but basically Instagram Reels too, they don't have as many features as TikTok. So avid TikTok users don't love Reels right now, but I know that over time they'll start adding to make it easier to create.
It's the algorithm. It's the algorithm. Like that's the biggest thing that the Reels are missing,
Yep, totally. But the other brand that was doing well was like more like lifestyle jewelry type of video shot. So almost like you're just recording videos of like the jewelries on her ears and her, the necklaces she's wearing, almost like a live photo shoot type of vibe, set to music and then kind of cut together like a little movie or something like that. That's been doing really well. And we think that'll work well for retailers going into holiday season as well.
In case anybody is listening and you're, feeling a little bit left out because you don't know what Reels are, to recap, Reels are kind of, you've probably heard of TikTok. It's all over the news because they're getting forced to get sold or whatever. But what it is these, I think they're 10 seconds or less or 6 seconds or less videos. And they're a part of Instagram now. And they are sort of like a variation of posts. And they are an entirely different thing. I think that businesses should be taking advantage of it because just like with any feature, Instagram wants it to take off. So they are prioritizing that in, again, with the word algorithm. So when they launched a new feature, you saw it with stories. When stories came out, which they stole directly off of Snapchat, but whatever. They pushed people who were using stories because they wanted it to take off. So if people use stories, they're going to give him a lot of traction. So Reels, another thing. I think that one of the great uses that would be amazing for it is, I feel like in jewelry, the biggest hurdle for retailers, for the consumer, is taking the product and then taking it from a sterile environment. So meaning like either a showcase or a photograph or, any way that it's been photographed, and then showing what it would look like on you without it being some, kind of corny looking thing. So I think that Reels are short enough that they could be used as a marketing tool to like you mentioned, here's this piece of this engagement ring, and like engagement rings, they look nice in the showcase. And it's like, here it is. Here's what it looks like on a ring. Maybe if that looks good enough for you, buy it right here. And I think that someone's going to be smart and find a way to use it. Maybe it's not me, but someone's going to be cool about it. What I would do is I would be doing a IGTV of like a couple of our pieces, have like a look at them. Someone tries them on. I would be doing Reels, a couple of ideas like what you had set to like some poppy music, posting. I feel like, what else am I missing? I feel like just being smart about it, doing ads, I'd be doubling down on
September is ramp up time. Like, I cannot say that enough. I feel like when people get into October, they're like, oh, I should probably start thinking about, holidays and what that looks like. No, October is go time. If you're planning for Q4, September really is like the best time to get all of your ducks in a row, to think about like, hey, I even just did like a webinar on creating a gift guide for like Punchmark websites, but gift guides go such a huge way, especially going into the holidays, curating that content. And then how are you going to push that out? Highlighting it on Facebook and Instagram, doing Instagram stories to showcase, using even Reels to highlight some of those products that much more. How are you tying this in? Email marketing, paid ads on Google. I think it all stems from like an integrated approach. Maybe I'm a broken wheel. To be fair, my degree is in integrated marketing communication. So that is like
broken wheel
in my bones.
Yeah.
Broken spoke, broken wheel. You get what I mean. It's just important to make sure that like you have all your ducks in your row, what your end goal is, and like how can you incorporate all of these tactics step by step, bite by bite to get you where you need to go. You know what I mean? It starts with a great website.
I definitely agree. I mean, I think that it's one of those just nothing is worse than being behind the eight ball when it comes to marketing. And some of these people, they're like, oh yeah, just create a gift guide. And it's like, so first you got to make the websites, and you got to have good product photos, and then you got to market it, and then you got to hit it out and all. Just start, 5 minutes of thinking about it right now is going to pay off in the long haul. I think that a lot of times, a lot of people, a lot of retailers, they are kind of thinking about things, 1 week out or a couple days out. I think that this stuff will really benefit you. Think about it a couple, maybe even a month or two out, I think. But that's just me.
Content calendars, man. If only we had a couple episodes that talked about content calendars.
That's the previous two episodes. Okay, so let's talk about checkout flow. So for the people that are listening, what checkout flow is that advanced step at the end of when someone puts it could include the action of adding it to your cart, but just for the sake of brevity and argument's sake, it's from when you get a product in your cart and then you're in the process of checking out with it. And there's a couple of different things you can do, and you have them so close to buying that piece if they're viewing the cart that you don't want to mess it up. So that's what we mean when we talk about the checkout flow. So what I've seen with the checkout flow is that if you go to these higher end websites, so for example, I use these example all the time, but Nike or Burberry or even Sephora, all of these stores that are doing massive quantities online, what they do is they actually are hiding their header as they go. And it's kind of like when, have you ever been to like a Michael's and you get into like that little maze? Well, there's a reason why you're in that maze is because they don't want you leaving. You're so close to buying your item why would they have you just get annoyed by how long the wait is and then walk out the door without buying anything? So that's kind of why they're doing those things.
I think the easiest checkout flow that I've experienced, and it gets dangerous, is using Apple Pay, for example.
Oh,
So I add it to my cart, and it's either go through 4 steps to put in all my details, or I click Apple Pay and confirm my face is my face, and then it's done.
Yeah.
That gets dangerous, but I like it. I've noticed on some sites more recently, it's a little bit slower. It does take some time if they're getting your information and trying to figure out what shipping is going to cost and X, Y, Z. So I've experienced times where I feel like it's just not loading fast enough, so I'll click out. But the checkout flow is so interesting, and being able to use analytics to understand what's happening. We were working with a large brand at one point, and they got a lot of feedback that shipping was too expensive, even though the pieces are very expensive. So we started looking at the checkout flow and understanding, first page, put in your information. Second page, confirm shipping. Third page, put in your details. Last page, confirm. Based on what people were saying that shipping was too expensive, we thought they'd get to that second step with shipping and they would just bow out of the process. Really, they were getting to the very end and just not clicking submit. So we kind of just took a look at what is this last point of contact before you check out? What does that look like? Made some slight optimizations, and all of a sudden the flow is a lot better and it's working. And people were having complaints about shipping, but it wasn't the problem when we looked at the flow. It was actually the very end of the process.
Yeah. And again, a lot of people already say that you can't fix what you can't measure. And with that kind of stuff, you can look at, for example, abandoned carts. So if some abandoned cart is when someone adds an item to their shopping cart or shopping bag, and then they don't actually check out with it, whether that's they've entered the checkout funnel or they are just on the website. And what you can do is you can retarget them with that. And I know that Site Manager or Punchmark's platform has a bunch of cool ways that you can, reach out to them if they have one. But again, those people, they're so close to the checkout that it's like, that they want that item. Otherwise, why would they have put it in their cart in the first place? So that's why you can get a little bit more aggressive with it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely go to websites, add to your cart and leave, and you're more than likely going to get an ad. If you go to Facebook or Instagram on social, within 10 to 20 minutes, probably with a promo code of enjoy 10% off your next purchase, because they know you've added to cart, you're close. You need something to get you across the finish line, and they're going to give it to you every day.
That ad, who knows how much it would have cost them to serve? 50 cents, $1, $3, whatever. But $3 in order to get you to buy, a fancy jacket that's $250, and it has a 1 in 10 chance of buying, that is absolutely a return on investment that they can accept. And that's why they're willing to start paying for those advertisements. And that's why we recommend people actually consider digital marketing or, buy ad buys or whatever it's going to be, because it does actually have proven success.
Yeah. I mean, even talking about the checkout flow, going back to sales, what I really love is whenever we have the opportunity, especially for jewelers, to market a product at a lower cost for a lower risk, just to get someone in the flow of going in, adding to their cart, checking out, getting them and having that experience. And we've had several retailers during COVID kind of sell, bracelets or small things for $30 to $50 to support, their local food banks for X, Y, and Z. That's low risk. So the sales really go up for that. People don't see that as a large investment. They're willing to make the purchase. That gets them in the door, gets them through that checkout process, seeing what it's like to receive a package from a brand, and then prompts them more to make a more expensive purchase. I think you do have to ladder that up to some extent. We can't just pieces that are several thousands of dollars on the website and expect them just to sell. Yep. How do we get these entry levels there that are low risk, get someone acquainted with the checkout process and that experience, and they're going to come back wanting more because it's going to be great.
There's tons of analytics out there that say, a first-time shopper on a website or, for example, in a brick and mortar restaurant, their first-time buyer is 1 out of 10 times that they're going to buy. However, a second-time buyer is like 40% more likely to purchase. And a third-time buyer, it's even more than that. And I think that it was really brilliant how those stores were selling these sort of, I hate the term cheap, but sort of less expensive items, because what it does is it does just get them more comfortable with the process, and they start to trust you more because they know, I bought this bracelet. Well, they served it quickly, or they sent it to me quickly. It came intact. It didn't break down, or it was good quality, and I like the experience. And then it's like, necklaces, they already have my card information saved in. Boom, quicker buy. And now you're making the second purchase.
Yeah, at that point, it just starts to get the wheels turning. One thing I will say that kind of gets annoying, especially for larger brands, if I'm interested, I add to cart, then I start getting targeted ads later. Then I make the purchase and continue to get ads. They're the same thing. I've made the purchase. You got me. can you leave me alone for a little bit? So we always stress from our side, if we're setting up e-com funnels, is once they buy, remove them from the audience, at least for a period of 10 to 30 days from that core messaging. Show them something different. Don't show me the same ad telling me to check out now. And I did that 2 hours ago. I know you can take me out of your audience.
Yeah.
This is going to hide the ad. It's going to impact the experience for the advertiser.
So if you had to say, Cody, what's like a red flag for you when it comes to a website? If you had to give one red flag, maybe not jewelry specific, but like e-com specific.
Some of it's just that the website's not optimized for mobile, which we didn't really talk about in the episode. But the thing I would stress is that, even for Punchmark, when we're building websites and we're using Site Builder for that, we're doing it from a desktop view, always making sure that we're rescaling or previewing that for mobile, since we know that's where the majority of customers come from. Is anytime I go to a site and it's not mobile friendly and I'm having to zoom really far in or the elements aren't working, the experience is impacted at that point, so I'm out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that the rate of people not just shopping, but just visiting on mobile it's never been higher. And I'll tell you right now, what it is right now is probably the lowest it's ever going to be, because it's going to just keep going higher. And I think that, if you don't pay attention to the mobile device, then I think you're losing like 40% of your audience at the door.
Definitely. Let me ask you, what do you think about brands that have a product and they don't want to show you the price until you add it to your cart?
I'm a big no about that, because I think that the whole thing is this trust relationship with this website that I'm interfacing with, as well as me. So if I'm trusting you to be on this website, I think you need to be trusting of me and show me the price. Because otherwise it's like, who wants to go into a relationship without like knowing, half the story or all the details? It seems disingenuous.
Yeah. I mean, from an advertising perspective, even looking at the data, your data is so cloudy at that point. Like the number of people that have added to cart, I know truly don't want the product. They just wanted to know what the price was. So I don't even like it from a standpoint of knowing that the back end data, you're never gonna have an accurate read on that, because people are just adding to see the price.
The only thing I could understand if it's like a custom piece, I think if you do custom jewelry and you have a fancy one-off piece, maybe not showing the price on that one and instead setting it to inquire, I can understand that one. Maybe you even obfuscate it behind, it's client privilege or something like that. But at the same time, and again, it's probably because every custom piece is going to be different, but I think there's got to be a trust, especially when it's just a standard product. I think you got to show it. So do you think that voice and, the web, it seems like it's changing all the time right now. Do you think that voice search is going to be a thing that we're going to have to start accommodating for on our websites? Do you guys have any idea what like kind of the next frontier when it comes to e-commerce is going to be?
Yeah, I think it's actually voice search. And you got to think about how many people own these personal in-home devices now, like Alexa, or I think Google's is called Google Home, like all these personal devices where it's like, buy toilet paper, or what's the weather going to be like today, or any kind of thing like that. So like I talked about earlier, a lot of keywords are transforming into long tail questions. So people are asking questions instead of just searching for something specific. Like Brian talked about, I think geotagging is one of the most important things, because it's engagement rings near me, or jewelry stores that are open near me, little things like that. But I think voice search, especially with the amount of in-home devices, are going to be huge.
Also thinking about what the voice searcher is looking for compared to, or the scenario around why they're voice searching. They may be at a traffic light with their, an envelope sitting in their cup holder with their wife's ring in it with a broken prong or something like that, right? And so being able to cater to the exact keywords. I've noticed with Google, if I type, take me to the hospital into Google, they'll come up with a directions page perhaps from the hospital itself. But if I speak, take me to the hospital, it will literally start navigation and plan the route and literally like start and proceed to the nearest road. And so just looking at the context and looking at what the people that are voice searching compared to the person that's typing, what they're looking for, I think catering to that, because it may never be that someone's going to go to your website and do a voice search on your website. Although I do think that we are probably heading in that direction. But people, I think right now are just more comfortable with having one hub, Siri or Google. And so just thinking about what those search results might be and what they're ultimately looking for, I think is the best bet for the immediate future.
I think it's really funny when my mom sends me a text message and it says like, what are you up to? And then it has the word spelled out, period, instead of just ending in punctuation. Like I'm like, all right, she sent this from Siri. But So
here's my prediction. Ready? I'm going to go all Alex Jones and you guys, all right. No, so it's going to be, I think that the next thing is going to be 0-click ordering, which is going to be where these in-home devices. So like just say like a Google Home device it's going to be always on, and then it's just going to listen throughout the day, and it's just going to be listening. And then every week on a certain day that you select, it's going to mail you a package. So this would work best from Amazon. It's going to mail you a package with all these things that they think that you would like. Toilet paper, batteries, maybe if you have a kid at home, diapers or baby food or whatever. And it's going to send you a cardboard already collapsed in that same box. It's going to send it to you. And then whatever you don't want, you send it back to them. But get this, the boxes to send it back, they're going to get better and better and better. And the boxes to send it back are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And eventually Amazon becomes the first like $20 trillion company. Yeah. Send it to the moon. That's my prediction right there. How do you guys like that one?
There we go.
Yeah.
And then Jeff Bezos buys Mars,
When our stores have diamond studs on people's subscriptions.
Exactly.
Hey, I missed my diamond stud order this month. I need to re-up on my studs.
So like, think about this. Like, what if it's like, what if it's a wealthy person in their house and they're like, oh, I forgot so-and-so's, my wife's birthday is coming up. Man, well, in comes this new ring, and they base it off of her previous browsing history or the previous shopping history. I mean, we're not there yet, but give it 5 years. I guarantee we're all going to have personal search history all linked in one like kind of set. And boom, it's going to be, oh, how'd you know? And it's like, of course I know. It's going to be crazy.
We had a girl on our team that sent us this video, and it was like the title was like trying to get my boyfriend to propose to me or give him my dish. And like,
yes, I saw that.
She had her phone. She was like, engagement rings, hearts on fire, hearts on fire, hearts on fire. Like, all these things, like, and then this guy just gets all these ads for engagement. He's like, well, I guess
I had so many of my friends send that to me because they know I work in the jewelry industry. Yeah. And the first time I worked for Punchmark, I went home for Thanksgiving and they all were like, so you work in the jewelry industry, right? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, how do you get a huge diamond for cheap? I was like, okay, do you actually want the answer? Or like, is that like a hypothetical question? They're like, no, like I'm going to write this down and like send it to my boyfriend. I'm like, so you want a really large amount of carats, but you want inclusions, you want a bad color. There you go. And they're like, exactly. They're like writing it down. I'm like, yeah, I'm so smart. This is such a good parlor trick.
The only last thing that we didn't touch on that I was going to talk about was Google My Business and talking about like how that, especially in times of COVID, I think people need to be really aware of when somebody searches jewelry stores near me and you get that little right-hand bar that pops up. Or even if they Google your jewelry store, you want to make sure you have the right hours, the right location, especially now during these times. If you have any mask mandates, if you have capacity limits, anything like that, it's really being sure that you're like being forward facing with the customer. Just optimizing that, I think, has a huge part to play in SEO too. And just giving the customers the full view of what your store is going to be about when you visit.
Totally agree.
Great point. Yeah. We said it in the last episode, but I'll say it in this one. If you change your hours for COVID, make sure that you have it on your website. Make sure you have it everywhere possible, because that's important. If you have any mask mandates, put that in your, your global alert at the top of your website or on your, somewhere prominent.
Yeah.
So, what are extensions?
What are extensions? Extensions are...
Let's talk about it right now.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, how many, I don't even know if I could list all of them off the top of my head, but so we didn't even talk really about the anatomy of an ad or really how to set it up, but you have the breakdown between like the headlines and then the actual body text itself of an ad. I'm sure you've seen them. And then underneath you have the ability to have additional online real estate of adding additional information to your ads. So there's like call out extensions. You can put your phone number, your address, site links. You can, showcase important pages that you feel like are relevant, so let's say you're doing like a repair campaign. You could, link to different pages that you have about like watch repair and like ring resizing or, whatever the case is. So it's just another way to, get more out of your ads. It's pretty cool.
More real estate. I mean, we did a presentation. It was so impactful to show just with basic headlines and descriptions. Here's where you're appearing. You take up minimal space on the SERP page at the top. But once you add in your site links and your location and a call extension and a promotion extension, you're just getting more real estate and bumping the competition down even further to where at times like you're on the entire screen.
Yeah.
I like those ads that pop up. If I search like sweatshirts or gloves or something like that, I was buying a pair of work gloves and they serve me the perfect little glove ad with the product right in front of me. Yep. Man, I am like 100% chance going to buy it because I hate online shopping as is. Like I really don't like just shopping in general. And if that gives me the out to buy without having to do any decision making, that is like so primo. And I think they know that. They're like, yeah, that's why we built those things in there.
Google shopping, I think it can be a bit more tricky because you don't have as much control over like when you're really analyzing, your descriptions and your product name and all of that. So it's more of like a put the money to the campaign and just see what happens versus having that really tight-knit control like you'd have for search or display. I'm on the fence with pre-roll now just because I feel lately with the changes that YouTube has made, you're now seeing more ads in a video almost every 2 to 3 minutes, whereas before it would maybe be once to twice in a 15-minute video. It's tricky because then from a consumer perspective, they don't really know what's happening on the back end. So they would attribute this bombarding of ads to the person that's serving the ad. So to that brand in particular. So it can maybe invoke, a negative perception of the brand because they've seen an ad so many times, even though the brand had no control over that. That was YouTube and Google controlling the algorithm of how many times to show. I don't know. It's getting tricky waters to me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I feel like, I was geeking out a little bit, but I could talk about pay-per-click and SEM for days. It is one of my favorite parts about digital marketing. It really is, just because there's so many like things that you can change and tweak. And it's a rush. Literally, I am a digital marketing junkie. Whenever I figure out, listen, it's true. Whenever I create like a campaign and I feel really good about it, and then I can see different things performing better than others. And then you're like, oh, okay. And you're taking notes, and then you can go through and use that through other campaigns and just continue to drive really great results and traffic for clients. I think it's pretty cool.
You're a junkie for Google. I'm a junkie for Facebook and Instagram. So
Well, okay, to be fair, we talked a little bit about like how display tends to be a little bit cheaper than kind of standard Google search. Honestly, I favor social more, especially for clients that have a little bit more of a conservative budget, because Facebook and Instagram tends to be significantly cheaper than Google, at least kind of high level.
With that from a display perspective, because I feel like with display, you can run your budget out so quickly, and sometimes the metrics on the site don't prove to be as qualified. I 100% believe Google search is like something someone should always run, because when you think about it, for Facebook and Instagram, I'm trying to go after someone. With Google search, they're trying to come after me. I just need to be at the right place at the right time. That intent level is so much different. But display is where it can get tricky, and remarketing is always a good option for that. But I think it takes a lot of budget for display, just from a prospecting standpoint, that we recommend for social more so than.
That would be my biggest fear is that's what I'm always concerned about people. That's why I'm glad that we had this talk, is because I'm worried that what if I say, okay, you know what? I'm going to try out this Google ad campaign. I'm going to do it. This is the thing that people are talking about. Let's go. I'm going to put $1,000 in, and then they spend $1,000 on the wrong thing, like display ads or whatever it is, and they should have been buying whatever. And suddenly they run through $1,000 budget over the course of a week, and they thought it was going to stretch them like a month. And then suddenly they don't see the results that they want, but they're still out of $1,000.
Yeah. So. And there are some bumpers that you can put in place to make sure that you kind of stay within the parameters that you want, So there are tons of things that you can do. It just kind of matters,
It's really interesting, the difference between Google. I'm kind of seeing these three prongs. There's like SEO, which is kind of not tricking, but like tailoring your website to being found and ranked higher by Google. There's Google, ad campaigns, which is paying for Google to rank you higher. And then there's Facebook marketing, which is getting Facebook and Instagram to put your products in front of people that might want to shop it. But it's cool because they kind of like all are sort of, if you're smart, you're doing all of them, I think. It seems like it.
Yeah. I think people think they have to do one or the other. And, truthfully, when it comes down to budget, sometimes for SEM and Google versus Facebook, it really is. You need to do one or the other because you don't have a large budget to do both. But when everything's running kind of full cylinder all together, some of the best campaigns we see are Google search campaigns where you're capturing a new visitor, getting them to the website, and then we're using social media retargeting to get them down the funnel. So they are working in conjunction and working together to get that consumer to a conversion.
a symphony. You can't all be playing, I don't know. I was about to say some analogy, but I don't even know what instruments are in a symphony. So I was going to be, can't all be playing lead guitar, but it's like,
make me laugh.
There's no guitars in a symphony. There isn't. It's just.
The other piece, and we didn't talk about this, it's not even lined up for the season, but Pinterest as another social platform that you could talk about,
You're like the wild card. Yeah.
It's the wild card. It's such a long ramp up because it's all inspiration driven. But when you think about it, it's just like a search engine like Google. People are going there, they're typing in for things, they're getting results. We've used it to some degree. We still, again, find that the bulk of performance is coming from Google or Facebook or Instagram. There's a space for it if you have the budget for it. But it, again, is that longer lead time. It takes a lot to drive that conversion from what we saw.
Yeah. I guess I just don't use, maybe I'm not the right demographic for it, but I just don't use Pinterest ever. And I don't know. It's so,
it's a perfect spot for bridal though. And for jewelry like that.
It is.
There's a sweet spot for it. So you can't count it out for the industry, for the jewelry industry specifically. I'll also say recently we did some Snapchat ads for just a local area. It performed very well. People are
Snapchat ads.
We had a retailer that had a physical booth at this campus. They needed to get students to come by where they were at. We ran the campaign and people are coming by saying, you guys are all over Snapchat. We saw your ads. We spent $80 and the ROI, I couldn't even tell you, you wouldn't believe it. It was incredible. It was incredible. And it was kind of like you don't think, we're so trained to be Google, Facebook, Instagram. Like we know these things that work that we don't always account for these extra variables that we could consider that could just be these tangent items that perform well. That was a case where it worked really well for us.
Yeah. And Pinterest has really been pushing paid ads recently too. Like I know I was solicited, maybe not solicited. I was pretty much solicited by Pinterest, and they were pushing really hard and getting on a call with like local agencies to really kind of explain like how paid ads work on Pinterest, kind of how that whole process works. It's relatively similar to what you would expect in some of the ad capabilities there, but that seems to be a really growing part of their platform too. So utilizing not only the organic aspect of it, but the paid ads too, seems to be doing pretty well, especially in the, as you can imagine, in the jewelry bridal kind of vertical.
I will say best customer service for Pinterest.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even so we got solicited. We have a rep now. It was the same process. They wanted to speak to agency partners. Yeah. We give the roster of our clients, big e-com clients, small retail clients, and what we want to do. Even as far as they're so great, like if we were in a campaign, we could have an account manager there and I could use something like Google Data Studio, pull some of the metrics from the campaign, provide that to Pinterest. They can look at these results from the website and make the optimizations for us for the campaign. So they're even assisting you in making these campaigns perform as strong as they could. It's a growing segment of their business and they want to make it bigger. So they're really focusing on that to drive it up.
We just got a comment from Stu in the chat. He said, most of the photos of my younger bridal clients walk in with are from Pinterest. I definitely agree. I think that the connection I don't understand, maybe I should spend more time on Pinterest, but I just don't understand the ligament of seeing rings and jewelry that you like on Pinterest and then going to the place that has that product, because I don't seem to understand the advertisement scope. Like, can you buy off of Pinterest?
I don't think that you can buy directly from Pinterest. They do have a shopping feed, so you could put your products there to go back to the website.
Sorry, my dog is having an attitude today. I don't think you have the ability to purchase directly from Pinterest itself, but I don't know. I mean, for myself, I'm in kind of the target demographic. I myself recently got engaged. I know before, that I sent pictures to my now fiance, like from Pinterest. And he knew a specific brand name. And then he just Googled the brand name and found a local jeweler that had that brand name and just went directly to them. So it's interesting that it kind of started at Pinterest. But I think Stu had a really great point. It's like their inspiration pictures, right? So I found those inspiration pictures. I shared that with my spouse. And then he then went and, did an organic search. So it's how all of these pieces kind of work together, for that end goal. If your SEO is not good, you're not going to be found at the end of the day, so it's a combination of those.
One thing we're going to try to do, on the next season of In the Loop. We're planning it right now. But one thing we're trying to do is we want to have not a panel, but like just individual interviews with real ring buyers. That's what I'm like kind of pitching it as. It's like people who have actually gone and bought a ring and are not in the jewelry industry. Because I really do think that a lot of, I do this with users, meaning people that use Site Manager, the Punchmark backend of our platform. And I also think that Jewelry Star owners do this for shoppers. They assume that they care about the 4 C's of diamonds. For real, when I tell you, my brother just bought a ring for his fiance, proposed to her, all good. He really did not care about those things. When he cared about, he wanted to get something that she would enjoy, that was inside of his budget, and also would not get him, like, not laughed at, but like would just be a respectable order. And he asked me, and I'm like ready to rip off all the information I've learned from being in the industry for 3.5 years. And no, what you want to know is, okay, should I be getting a round diamond or a square diamond? And I was like, I don't know, what does she like? He's like, I think she likes round. I'm like, then you should get a round one. And it's just like, it's that simple. It doesn't have to be all this convoluted stuff. So
right. So actually, one thing that's kind of interesting, you guys might find interesting. So again, I know I'm using this as an example, but obviously I myself am going through this whole process of planning a wedding. So I'm in like a few different like bridal groups on Facebook just for like vendor recommendations, ideas, whatever. Listen, I have a point. So it was interesting because yesterday, one of the groups that I'm in, there was a post that was on there, and I actually have it pulled up. And it says, "Hi all, doing a little bit of research. How did you find your engagement ring?" And then they listed it out in terms of like jewelry shop, online, custom jeweler, pawn shop. And then like, because I'm a marketer too, I was like, ding, 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 you are not engaged. And I even did the research. I like clicked in there and I'm like, okay, you're not engaged. Clearly you're doing market research. And then it's interesting to like see the amount of people like responding. And I even commented, was like, let me know how your research goes. Like, okay, thanks, bye. But it was interesting because the results from it was overwhelmingly people going in the store, but underneath it was buying it directly online. So I thought that was really interesting. There was like 200 votes for buying in store, and then there was like 150 for people buying it online. And then there were a few others where people like inherited it. Some people went to a pawn shop, some people went to like wedding shows, things of that nature. But like overwhelmingly, the top 2 was in store and online. It was interesting that gap.
Stu, as a thank you for sticking around and listening to us, we'll give you her name and you can just give her a ring on Facebook. And you just, hey, I heard you're in the market for an engagement ring. What do you think? And just you can market directly to her. No.
Well, I mean, I don't imagine that, many people are going into the store and having no idea of what they're market for. So they're doing that research.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if it's women, they're landing on Pinterest and they're getting an inspiration, whether then they're coming in with their fiance or potential fiance to pick out the ring, or you just share the board. Like you shared this stuff with your fiance, Katie, and that's what they go off of. And I would venture, you're in the industry, we're in the industry. So like you knew the brand and you probably knew a lot of details about what you wanted.
Yes.
Most just know the style or the general idea. So even from that perspective,
a single diamond? Do you want a band of diamonds? Do you want like what is it you think that they want? And then I really think that jewelers get caught up in like the size and carat and like clarity and all these things that have to do with like the diamond. But I really think it's more like, it seems to be more about the ring. I don't know. Like
how's it going to photo? Itself. How's it going to look and sparkle?
How's it going to photo?
Right.
That's such a great. Oh, look at that.
Like for me, I didn't have a specific carat that I wanted. I just knew I wanted a better quality center diamond and for it to look proportional on my tiny baby hands because I wear a 4.5 size, you know what I mean? So it's going to be different for each person, maybe not necessarily like, larger versus bigger. It's again, how it looks for them personally.
Yeah,
so
that's what I love. Our retailers really focusing on diamond education and helping the consumers figure out what their needs are. So we've got great partners in the industry doing that.
I think we're on the brink of something new when it comes to podcasts, going through stats and basically looking at this new technology that they're working on to actually have that experience to cookie. You have you could watch YouTube live and during the video, you can click certain things and you can watch back like the live, process, even Facebook videos, this very video that's being recorded right now, you can look back and see if someone clicks love right now, it'll actually happen in the playback, and so those kinds of little earmarks and bookmarks. And in addition to getting feedback for the people who are listening, there's even talk about monetizing the listening, which is crazy. And in the form of advertising, right? So if everyone's time is valuable, right? So this stuff is fascinating to me, but I think we're on the brink of something new when it comes to podcasts alone. And I think it's super interesting.
I think that podcasting.
Yeah, and I think that we're just getting started with this podcast. I think we're just getting started and where it goes and sort of how it metamorphosizes into something amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I really hope, my goal, it's funny, I don't have any idea of like where this thing will go. Just speaking very candidly for the people at home, I don't have any idea what this thing will become. I think that we have a very hyper-focused base of jewelers. I am, I would love to speak at have us host one as a live show at like a JCK or like an IJO or something like that on like a big stage. But again, I think it's podcasting, I still think is right on the cutting edge. I think that it's kind of still in this golden age of when people, the startup cost for making a podcast is so cheap, and the people that are able to listen to it and willing to listen to it is so high that it's like, it hasn't risen to meet it. Eventually the cost or the space will become kind of waterlogged or was it flooded? But right now, man, I think that there's so much. My big thing, I wish one of our clients would start their own jewelers podcast, jewelers for jewelers, and make their own podcast. I think that would be hugely successful.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing
Mike,
is
if it ends up being called jewelers for jewelers, then you need to get
it up. Yeah.
I was going to say the other thing I think is the experience of listening to podcasts, the players, and sort of the interactivity of where we'll see, how Spotify's evolved the streaming experience over time with lyrics and video and stuff. I think podcasts are going to start seeing where we're going to see pop-ups and articles and enhanced listening to where they can, at this point, you plug in these links and these videos come up, or these, like, you know what I mean? It's almost like voice will have this video experience to it, this visual experience to it as well, or even some way in audio. I don't know what it could be, but
Yeah. Or like if I drop a stat, it would show the stat that's referenced in where it was found. So like a little bit of surrounding information so that people could read more than just the stat. I think that there's so much opportunity to provide information, because right now, like, people are probably listening, or people would be listening by just on their drive home or wherever they're going. And I think that will never go away. People are always going to want to multitask. And I think that won't disappear.
Yeah, in voice, I could be like, save that, and all of a sudden it saves the link or whatever that I just said on the podcast. Or I could say, hey Siri, buy this or buy that. And it puts it in my queue for my shopping cart to see when I get home, things of that nature.
I've speculated about this, but my speculation about Amazon is going to be that Amazon Alexa is going to have an option. Do you want this to be always on? And then what people will do, eventually the AI will become good enough that it'll be listening, and say you make something that's like, oh man, just ran out. Like, do you know where the batteries are? And then I'll trigger it. It'll order the batteries. And what it'll do is it'll send you a box with all these goodies that it thinks that you would want. And then inside the box, collapsed, will be a second box. And then with whatever items you don't like, you put it back into the box and you mail it back. And eventually it becomes good enough that the boxes to send stuff back gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's going to be called zero-click ordering, because you didn't even know you wanted it. But it's like baby diapers, batteries, more juice, or whatever it is. It'll pick it up, it'll send it to you. You don't like it, you send it back, but you always like it. There you go.
All right, everybody, that's the end of the season, and we hope that you enjoyed this first season of In the Loop. And it's been a real honor to bring you each week's episode in collaboration with the Smithy Group and brought to you by Punchmark. My name is Michael Burpo, and we're going to be taking a short break before we come back to you with season 2 in early January. It's going to be pretty much the same type of show. We're just going to be changing up what the different topics are going to be. The show won't be live anymore, but we will be bringing you weekly episodes instead of bi-weekly. We hope that you stick around and come back when we start posting again. And it's been a lot of fun bringing you the most important information for e-commerce in the jewelry industry. Again, this is Michael Burpo with Punchmark and the Smithy Group. We hope you see you again real soon. Bye.